Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, this is Spider, and welcome back to another review. And today we're taking a look at the Star Wars The Black Series, The Mandalorian with Beskar Armor. This set released back in 2020, and based on his appearance from the show, Star Wars The Mandalorian. So, to get things started, we'll take a look at the packaging. There we have the box. You got Star Wars The Black Series up at the top. You got a plastic window where the figure was, name of the show. And you got the Mandalorian. I do think it's a bit odd that they didn't change the name at all to differentiate it from the previous Mando figure, like Mandalorian in parentheses Beskar Armor or anything like that. It just has the exact same name. You know, bit odd. Whatever. On the back, you got a nice image of Mando there. You got a little bio. If you want to pause and read that. On the side, you got not much. On the other side, you got that same nice image of the Mandalorian. Top, bottom, the end. Onto the figure. And here we have Beskar Mando. And first things first, we'll take a look at the articulations. We'll bring it a little closer here. At the head, he has a ball joint. It also has a ball joint at the base of the neck, which is quite nice. It allows for some decent looking down, some pretty decent looking up. You get some nice tilting side to side, and obviously you can look all the way around. The shoulder, he does actually have butterfly joints, which is very nice, and I almost completely missed that because it's kind of tight on my copy, but you do get some nice kind of back and forth movement. So, not the most expressive butterfly joint, but the fact that they included it at all is quite nice. And the shoulder can go only that far out. Unfortunately, the shoulder pad kind of gets in the way, but what can you do? You get some rotation at the elbow. You get a decent bend at the elbow. Get a rotation at the wrist, and the left wrist can go in and out. Meanwhile, the right wrist can go up and down. So that's interesting. Move the arms out of the way, and he does have a ball joint at the torso. So you get some decent crunching and some pretty dang good arch. You get some nice side to side. And of course it can rotate, but do be careful when rotating because you don't want to stretch out that strap that goes across his chest. The legs can kick that far forward, and unfortunately can't kick too far back because the butt sculpt kind of gets in the way. Figure can do a pretty decent split. You get a nice thigh rotation and also a nice double jointed knee bend. Always appreciated. Kind of wish we got a double jointed elbow bend, but whatever. And the foot can go down and up, and you get pretty good tilt. So yeah, the articulation is pretty dang nice. It is limited in some areas, but you can still get him in a lot of very nice poses. So yeah, now we're done with articulation. Can bring the camera up a little bit further and hit that zoom button. Take a look at the details. Actually, hang on. Let's bring up the camera a little extra more. There we go. Now we can look at the details. So you get that nice helmet, which I actually think the helmet sculpt in this is a little off. Doesn't quite look right to me. I think they could have done maybe a little bit better job with it. But it's still, you know, it gets the job done. You get a nice shiny chest plate. Little strap going across it with all the little doodads and buckles on it. You get shoulder pad, the arm gauntlet. You get the hand, and I do think they didn't quite get the color on the fingers right, because in the show his fingers are pretty prominently orange, but on here they're almost like a faded, like tan, like mustard yellow color. So I think they could have matched the color on that a little better. The other arm, and they showed you get that very nice Mudhorn insignia. That looks very nice. You got different looking arm gauntlet. You got trigger finger hand. You do get some pretty nice detail on the inside of the arm as well. You got belt. You got holster. You got the little mini bombs on his hip, and I do wish the little red dots were painted on the mini bombs. That could have been nice. You get legs. I also think they didn't get the color for this knee pad right. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be more of a blue, less of a brown color. Unless I'm remembering wrong. But, yeah. So, the rest of the detail, you got some holes on the bottom so you can plug them into a stand. On the back, you do get a plastic cape, which I'm not the biggest fan of. And in most cases, it would still be fine. But this kind of gets in the way of other things that we'll talk about in a minute. But sculpt-wise, it's alright. Got some nice tattering and like can't speak, like tear detail going on, so that's cool. Flipping around, you can see the back, which is quite nice. So while some of the details aren't quite right, overall the figure does look pretty dang good. I do quite dig the look of this figure. You know, even with those flubbed details, he still just looks very nice. Yeah, so that's it for the figure, but that's not all that we have to talk about, because he does have a few accessories. First things first, we have his IB-94 blaster pistol. Focusing on that. Nice and silver, the brown handle. And indentation for the barrel, which is always nice, appreciate that. And you can hold that. Whoops. You can hold that pretty easily in his hand. Finger in the trigger. And that looks pretty good. But if you don't want him holding that, you can take this holster and just slip it in there. And there is actually a strap to hold the pistol in place. And that is really cool. That's a very nice detail. Like, they did not have to include that at all, but the fact that they did is really cool. I very much appreciate that, because I already like functioning holsters already, but the fact that they include that strap just makes that even more cooler for me. Although, I don't recommend keeping the pistol in the holster for too long, unfortunately, because if you do, it will start to bend. The pistol, you can see like mine's kind of warped a little bit. Yeah, that kind of sucks. I really wish that wasn't the case, but yeah. I just kind of put the pistol in that holster and just left it there for a bit, and yeah, it started warping the pistol. That sucks. Really wish that wasn't the case. Don't know why it's the case. That wasn't the case on the vintage collection Mando like that. That holster wasn't warping the pistol, and the holster on the Black Series Boba Fett also didn't do that. So I don't know what's wrong with that holster, but yeah, it warps the gun. That kind of sucks. Anyways, we can move on to his other weapon, the Amban Phase Pulse Sniper Rifle. So you can see this. Pretty cool. Got some nice detail on this. You can really see like all the little like bolts and stuff and little pins and all the little details on there. That looks quite cool. Unfortunately, some of the paint on this isn't the sturdiest. You see that's the peg that plugs into the body, and can see some of the paint's kind of scraping off of that, which is unfortunate. And also, paint on the handle is also scraping off. So yeah, just taking the gun in and out of his hand a few times will scrape off the brown paint. Yeah. Apologies, had a frog in my throat. I don't know what the heck happened there, but yeah. That's unfortunate that the paint is just scraping off of that. You think they would have had the foresight to paint this with, like, more durable paint. But apparently not. So, that is unfortunate. But, despite that flaw, the figure does look quite nice holding the rifle. And you can actually get the figure to somewhat look like he's looking down the barrel of the rifle, which is nice. I think I just bumped the camera, apologies. But yeah, that's cool. You can actually get him to kind of look like he's, you know, looking down the barrel, or not the barrel, but looking down the scope, because yeah, if a character comes with like a rifle like that, you would want him to be able to look down the scope, so that's nice. You can get him to do that. And if you don't want the figure holding the rifle, it can store on the back. Get a little tab there and make sure you line up the strap with that hole. Then you get the rifle and you just plug it on in. And you get that look. That is quite nice. Unfortunately though, the connection is not the sturdiest. You can see like it came out pretty dang easily. That is really unfortunate. I wish it had a much sturdier connection, but it kind of just, yeah, pops out really easily. I do kind of wish it was a better connection, like on the vintage, can't speak, on the vintage collection one. It was a much more snug fit. Like, it was pretty much perfect on that one. I wish they were able to replicate that with the bigger version, but oh well. And then we come to the final accessory, the jetpack. So focus in on here. Take a look at this jetpack. And for the most part, the sculpt is pretty decent, except for these two little bits that stick out here. Instead of being fully picked out, they're just kind of molded into this back panel here, which is kind of disappointing, especially considering on the Boba Fett jetpack, these little details are fully, you know, individually sculpted things. But here, they didn't do that. Which is not great, especially since the Boba Fett figure is older than this one, so it's like, you did it before, why didn't you do it again? I don't know. It does have some holes here at the bottom, so you can plug in some flame effects if you had them. The set doesn't come with any, so yeah, but if you did have some, you can plug them in there. I also think the color is kind of off. Like, it's sort of just this flat, dark gray. Whereas in the show, I feel like the jetpack was just as shiny as the armor was. So, yeah, this, honestly, the jetpack doesn't look that great, really. Like, it's passable, but it's, I don't know. This feels like it was more so taken off of the prototype rather than like the finished product. I don't know. I feel like they could have done better with this. Anyways, with the jetpack, it obviously goes onto the back. So you got those 3 holes there. You got 3 pegs there, and there actually is an indentation for the strap. So that's nice. You just take that and plug it on to the back. And now Mando has his jetpack. Except, there's one little issue. The cape doesn't really have anywhere to go anymore. So, yeah, like you push it off to the side like that, it just looks kind of silly. When you have it draping off of the jetpack, well then that just looks silly. Like, yeah, this is what I was talking about, where the plastic cape, not the greatest choice, because it really just gets in the way when you try and put the jetpack on, like that. really should have been thought through better. Because, yeah, that just looks ridiculous. And you can kind of try and cheat it, like try and scoot in the cape and then plug in the jetpack like that, which, you know, that looks a little better, but still, it just, this shouldn't have been an issue. Like, they really could have easily fixed this problem if they just gave the figure a cloth cape, because then they could have just, you know, scrunched it over to the side and then just plug in the backpack, the jetpack. Kind of like he does in the show. Like, that's exactly what he does. He just bundles the cape off to the side and then just puts on the jetpack. Why didn't they give him a cloth cape so we can do that? That really, really bugs me. It's like, come on, just such a simple solution would have fixed that problem. But yeah, as it is now, I rarely even use the jetpack. I kind of just put it off to the side and just use the two guns and don't ever really bother with the jetpack because it's just, yeah, it's just kind of a mess. Very unfortunate. Oh, also, if you have the jetpack on, you also can't store the rifle on, which that I'm more so okay with. It's the cape thing that really bugs me. And if you're wondering, yes, the cape is removable. Comes off fairly easily, so you can do that to try and you know, amend the cape issue. But then now the figure just kind of looks, you know, he's missing the cape, so now he doesn't have his complete look anymore. So just, again, you wouldn't have to worry about all this if they just gave him a cloth cape. But they didn't. So yeah, jetpack is a bit of a problem. Problem with such an easy solution that I really wish they did. Like, I don't know how, like, a problem this glaringly obvious got okay. Like, did no one playtest this thing? I don't know how they didn't realize that was going to be a problem and they just okayed it and put it on the shelves. Like, my only guess as to how that happened is, since this figure did release pretty closely to when Season 2 of The Mandalorian did, my guess is maybe they rushed the figure to get it out in time so it could release alongside the show and, you know, they could, you know, sell more figures that way. Like, that's the only way I can imagine that such a glaringly obvious problem got okayed, is that this figure got rushed in that regard. Because if that's not why this happened, then I don't know. So, yeah. Ooh. Didn't mean to do that. Yeah. The two blasters, those are pretty fun. This is just, yeah, just set it aside, because that's what I do. But that's pretty much everything to talk about, so on to size comparisons. So, to start things off as always, here it is with a LEGO minifigure, with the Pack of Destruction minifigure Mothra, with the Pack of Destruction minifigure Godzilla. Here is with the Marvel Legends Walgreens exclusive Mystique. Get an idea how it scales with other 6-inch lines. Here's with the Black Series Archive Collection Boba Fett. Here's with Black Series The Child. And if you're wondering, yes, he can hold little Grogu in his arms. And to finish off the size comparisons, here he is with the previous review, the Vintage Collection 166 Mandalorian. Now that we're done with all that, it's measuring time. So, get this out. Set beside the figure. You can see he is slightly over 6 inches tall. So, that is pretty much it for Hasbro's first attempt at a Black Series Beskar Mandalorian. And overall, it could have been better. I mean, it's not a bad figure, but it is definitely disappointing in some regards. But for the most part, the figure does look pretty good, and he is quite fun to pose. But if you were to get a Black Series Beskar Mando, I recommend getting one of the later releases over this one. But if you did want this one in particular, on eBay, he's going for around $20 or less. So, actually, pretty good aftermarket prices. Really good. In fact, he's going cheaper than what he was originally, so that's nice. And I think that's pretty much everything I had to say. So, hope you all enjoyed this review. Till next time, see you later. Sayonara.